Billionaire saw Black Driver dancing with his paralyzed daughter. What happened shocked everyone. The screams came first. Not loud, not at first. Just the sharp inhale of someone watching the impossible unfold. Then a crash, like glass exploding in slow motion, and the heavy thud of a body hitting marble. It was the sound of money being shocked into silence. Hundreds of eyes stared across the ballroom, past the ice sculptures and white lilies, past the gilded string quartet still bowing through instinct. All eyes locked on the center of the floor. There, in the middle of the Billionaire's charity gala, a black man in a wrinkled suit was dancing, not just dancing, twirling, with the host's paralyzed daughter. And she was standing. No chair, no braces. Her legs, long dormant, were moving, one foot slipping forward like she'd always known how, the other following like it had been waiting for this moment. Her arms were looped loosely around his neck, her eyes wide with something between joy and terror, and her mouth was whispering something no one could hear. The man didn't say a word. He just moved with her, steady and slow, like they were the only two people on earth. Then the father pushed through the crowd. His face was white-hot fury, disbelief written in every stiff joint and clenched fist. Billionaire Malcolm Grayson didn't walk so much as bulldoze, knocking over a champagne tray as he stormed toward them. "Get your damn hands off her." But the man didn't flinch. He held her even closer. "Daddy," the girl whispered, but it wasn't a cry for help. It was a warning. That's when the girl's knees buckled. Her body collapsed like her bones remembered what they weren't supposed to do. The man caught her, eased her down. Gasps rippled again. And then the gun came out. No one saw who drew first, but the shot rang out anyway. A single, deafening crack. And everyone froze. Who pulled the trigger? And who was hit? 6 weeks earlier, the engine of the black Lincoln Town car shuddered to a stop outside the Grayson estate. Not a mansion, a compound. Acres of white stone and glass perched above the Pacific, the kind of place you only saw in helicopter footage when someone got indicted. The driver stepped out, brushing down the front of his jacket. Elijah Brooks wasn't new to rich folks. He'd worked in every kind of home, hauled bags for every kind of asshole. But this place, this was different. It was too quiet, too clean, too still. He walked to the passenger's side, opened the door, and waited. A nurse stepped out first, then a slim, pale girl with auburn hair and steel braces locked around her legs. She moved like each step was a negotiation. Her name was Caroline. "Elijah Brooks?" the nurse asked. He nodded. "Mr. Grayson wants him vetted every morning." "I figured," Elijah said. He knelt to pick up Caroline's bag. "You all right with me carrying this?" Caroline didn't answer, just stared at him, eyes narrowed, like she was trying to solve a riddle. "She doesn't talk much," the nurse offered. "Not to strangers." "I'm not a stranger," Elijah said without looking up. "I'm the driver." The job was supposed to be simple. Drive the girl to her appointments. Don't speak unless spoken to. Don't enter the house without permission. Don't touch anything. Elijah had heard worse. He'd worked security for C-list rappers, wrangled wild teenagers through Vegas weekends, even drove a senator once, the kind that smiled for cameras and barked racist slurs the second the door closed. But something about Caroline got under his skin. It wasn't pity. It wasn't attraction. It was the silence. And the way she watched everything. By the second week, she was asking him to change the radio. By the third, she was asking about his tattoos. By the fourth, she was laughing. Soft, short bursts that disappeared just as fast. Elijah didn't ask about her legs. She didn't talk about them. He figured they had an agreement. But he noticed things. The way her fingers twitched during music. How her feet sometimes jerked like they were trying to remember rhythm. He kept a journal. Always had. Nothing fancy. Just thoughts. Memories. Songs he was working on. He'd been a backup dancer in another life, before the accident. Before the steel in his spine. Before he couldn't walk right for a year and had to learn patience the hard way. One day, waiting outside the clinic, he hummed a melody he used to choreograph to. Caroline was dozing in the back seat. Until she wasn't. "What's that?" Elijah glanced in the mirror. "Just something old." "Can you play it again?" He sang it, low and gravelly, like the engine idling beneath them. When he looked back, her fingers were tapping the window. They didn't say anything else. But the next day, She asked again. That Friday, she didn't want to go to therapy. Fought hard against the nurse. Kicked over a stool. She has days like this, the nurse said, rolling her eyes. Mood swings. Let her throw it. But Elijah didn't move. He knelt beside her chair and whispered something no one else could hear. And somehow, she calmed. The nurse stared like he'd spoken another language. Later, as they drove through the canyon roads, Caroline stared out the window. Do you believe people can choose to heal? She asked. He didn't answer at first. Then, I think people can choose not to give up. She didn't reply, but she didn't look away either. It was the following Tuesday when everything shifted. She asked him to turn up the music. Then she asked him to help her out of the chair. You sure? He said quietly. I need to feel something. They were alone in a shaded pull-off road near the cliffs. Just the two of them, the sea, and a world that didn't believe in miracles. He stood behind her, held her wrists lightly, and she moved. Not far, not fast, just one trembling sway to the left and then to the right. Elijah followed, guided her, supported her, and slowly, her knees stopped shaking. That was the first dance. No one saw it, but everything after started there. They danced in secret, only where no one could find them. The edge of clinic courtyards, empty garages, quiet moonlit stretches of driveway. Nothing dramatic, just enough for her muscles to start remembering. It was dangerous, stupid, even. If Mr. Grayson found out, Elijah would lose everything. His job, his reputation, maybe was. But Caroline kept asking, and Elijah kept answering, because somehow she was healing. Not just her body, her spirit, her will. She laughed more. She cursed louder. And every time they moved, something inside her came alive. Then came the gala, Grayson's annual fundraiser for spinal injury research. A PR stunt wrapped in satin and symphony music. Hundreds of millionaires gathered under crystal chandeliers pretending they cared. Caroline begged to go. Not in her chair. Standing. Elijah tried to talk her down. Told her it was too much. Too fast. But she was already planning her dress. Already planning to walk. And then she said something he couldn't shake. I don't care if I fall. I just want to know I tried. So he helped her. He helped her stand. Helped her rehearse. Helped her dream. And on the night of the gala, in front of the whole damn world, he helped her dance. But now, the shot had been fired. And Elijah's hand was empty. His heart thudded in his throat. People screamed again, scrambled for cover. Caroline's body was cradled in his arms. He looked up, and saw Grayson's face. But there was no gun in his hands. It was someone else. Someone neither of them had seen coming. And whatever happened next, it was going to change everything. The smoke from the gun still hung in the air. Thick, tangled with the sharp, sterile scent of lilies and adrenaline. Somewhere in the distance, a waiter dropped a tray and someone screamed again, high and panicked, like the delay finally caught up to them. But Elijah didn't move. His arms stayed around Caroline. His eyes stayed on the man holding the pistol. Not Malcolm Grayson. Not security. It was Dean Harper, Grayson's right-hand man, COO of Grayson Innovations. 35, all tailored suits and permanent smug. The kind of guy who smiled with his mouth but not his eyes. Now, his hands were shaking, and the gun was pointed down. Not at Elijah, at the marble floor where a chunk had shattered near their feet. A warning shot. A message. Jesus? Dean? Someone barked. I didn't. Dean's voice cracked. She fell. I thought. I didn't know what was happening. Malcolm Grayson shoved through the frozen wall of guests, his face drained of color. He dropped to his knees beside Caroline. Sweetheart. She groaned, still breathing. Elijah held her tighter, instinctively, not sure who the hell to trust anymore. Then Grayson looked up at him, not with rage this time, but confusion. Like Elijah had cracked open the world and shown him something that didn't make sense. She was dancing, he said flatly. Ow! Elijah didn't answer. Neither did Caroline. She had her eyes closed now, but her lips were moving, mouthing something over and over, too soft to hear. And then the security team arrived. And everything went to hell. 2 hours earlier, the Grayson estate was lit like a film set. Cars snaked up the hill in a slow, shimmering line of luxury. Every driver wore black. Every guest was white, and Elijah Brooks was sweating through both. He stood beside the car, door open, watching Caroline in the rear-view mirror. "You sure you want this?" She met his eyes. "I need this." Her voice didn't tremble. That surprised him. So did her legs. She hadn't used the braces since last week. Not since their last session, where she stood for 12 seconds without collapsing. Tonight wasn't about standing, though. It was about moving. And not just for herself. She had a plan. He just didn't know all of it. "I'll be nearby," Elijah said. "You always are." Her mouth twitched, the smallest smile. Then she opened the door and stepped out on her own. Inside, the gala was a fever dream. Hundreds of the wealthiest people in California sipping cocktails beneath enormous chandeliers. A jazz trio played in the corner, just loud enough to make conversations feel secret. Waiters floated with trays of food most people couldn't pronounce. Caroline walked in with slow, practiced steps, ignoring the stares. Her silk gown swept behind her, stitched in pale golds and soft blush pinks, as if she'd bloomed straight from the marble. No one dared speak to her, but no one looked away. Then the music changed. The band shifted into something unfamiliar, and Elijah stepped onto the floor. Not with a mic, not with a speech, just with his hand outstretched. The crowd murmured. Someone laughed, short, nervous. Caroline didn't blink. She walked to him and took his hand. They danced. For 90 seconds, everything else stopped. No one moved. No one clapped. No one even breathed. Because Caroline Grayson, paralyzed since the accident 2 years ago, was dancing in front of them. And the man guiding her wasn't a doctor, wasn't a specialist. He was just the driver. And somehow, this man had done what medicine, money, and time had failed to do. He'd helped her move, help her live. And for a second, just a second, her father saw it. The joy, the pride. Then he saw the headlines forming. And the anger came rushing back. When security hauled Elijah to the back entrance, he didn't resist. Not when they twisted his arm behind him, not when they shoved him against the concrete wall, not even when one of them muttered, "Lucky it was a warning shot." He stayed silent, kept his eyes on the door, waiting for someone to tell him what was next. Inside, Grayson was pacing. Dean Harper was shouting, "Are you out of your mind? Letting that man near her? We're going to have reporters all over this. If they find out she stood up in public, if they know she fell, you know what that looks like? Like negligence, like exploitation." "She wasn't exploited," Grayson snapped. "You don't get to decide that now." Dean's jaw clenched. "You saw the way he was holding her." "She asked for him." Dean sneered. "She's 18. She doesn't know what she's doing." And that's when Caroline, from the couch with an ice pack on her hip, lifted her head. "She knows exactly what she's doing." The room froze. Dean turned, but she didn't look at him. She looked at her father. "I walked because of Elijah," she said. "I danced because of him. And I'd do it again." "He manipulated you," Dean shot back. "No, he believed in me. You all told me I'd never stand again. You told me it was over." Silence. Caroline breathed hard. Then softer. "He made me want to try." Grayson didn't say anything. His hands were trembling. Dean turned back to him. "You have to make this go away. Pay him off, shut it down, call the press and spin it." "No," Grayson said. Dean stopped. "What?" "I said no." Grayson stepped forward. "He didn't hurt her. He saved her. You pulled a gun on my daughter, Dean. I was protecting her. You panicked. You could have killed her." Dean's voice dropped. "If this gets out, the board's going to lose it. You'll be seen as unstable, weak, letting the help dance with your broken daughter like some circus act." He never finished the sentence, because Grayson decked him. Hard, straight to the jaw. Dean hit the floor like a dropped puppet. "You're fired," Grayson said. Then turned to security. "Let the driver go." Outside, Elijah leaned against the car, half expecting someone to come back with cuffs. Instead, it was Caroline. She walked up without help. "Hey," she said softly. "You okay?" She nodded. "He didn't blame you." Elijah raised an eyebrow. "But you do," he said. "No," she said. "But you didn't tell me everything." Elijah looked away. "You said you used to dance. You didn't say how, or why you stopped." She paused. I want to know. He sighed. I was supposed to be a star. Backup dancer for Jalen King. Big tour. Big lights. I pushed too hard. Slipped on a wet stage during rehearsal. He tapped his lower back. Shattered 2 discs. They said I'd never dance again. Took me a year to walk without pain. 2 more to trust my body. I lost everything. Caroline was quiet. But you danced with me. He looked at her. Yeah, he said. I did. Then maybe, she whispered, we both got something back tonight. He smiled. Just barely. But it was real. Then she took his hand. And in the darkness behind the estate, far from the whispers and the cameras and the men who thought they could own her story, she danced again. The next morning, Elijah woke to the sound of his phone buzzing non-stop. Not ringing. Buzzing. Like a swarm of bees inside his nightstand. He sat up fast, the dull ache in his lower back reminding him that yesterday was no dream. The gala. The dance. The gunshot. And the moment Caroline stood on her own 2 feet for the world to see. He checked the screen. Missed calls, 14. Unknown number, 6. Grayson Estate, 3:47 a.m. Mom, 5:02 a.m. Newsnet LA, voicemail. Then the texts. You on the news? Man. They saying you healed that girl. What the hell? Elijah, you okay? Call me now. They got footage. It's all over Twitter. You trending. Bro, you save that girl WTH. He opened the app. Searched his own name. And there it was. #Elijah Brooks. #Grayson Miracle. Clips from the gala were already viral. Shaky hands had captured the moment Caroline stood. Her steps. Her smile. And the embrace with Elijah that followed. Some cut off before the shot. Others didn't. Comment sections were wild. This man should be nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. This is the kind of love and belief medicine can't buy. Why was security so aggressive? Was she really paralyzed, or was this all for clout? That girl's face, the way she looked at him, you can't fake that. Elijah rubbed his eyes. This wasn't how he wanted this. Not like this. His phone rang again. He almost didn't answer, but the screen flashed. Caroline. Hey, he said, voice low. Are you okay? Been better. She paused. They're calling you my miracle man. He scoffed. They're gonna call me a fraud by noon. No, they are not, she said. Because it's real. What we did. What you helped me do. He stayed quiet. There's a press van outside, she added. 2, actually. One guy tried to hop the gate. Grayson must be losing it. His nut. That surprised him. He wants to talk. To both of us. Elijah sat up straighter. Why? He says, he's got a plan. And he wants to offer you something. What kind of something? Her voice dipped. He didn't say. An hour later, Elijah stood at the edge of the Grayson Estate circular driveway, a sleek black car waiting to escort him through the gates. The last time he was here, he was a driver. This time, someone else opened the door for him. Inside, the house was quieter than usual. No staff buzzing around. No echo of Caroline's wheel chai. Just the click of polished shoes down marble as Malcolm Grayson himself emerged from the sitting room. Elijah, he said, his tone unreadable. Thank you for coming. Elijah stayed standing. I wasn't sure I had a choice. Grayson gave a dry smile. You're not wrong. He gestured to a pair of leather chairs near the window. Elijah hesitated. Then Saturday. Grayson didn't waste time. Let me start by saying what you did for my daughter was unexpected, but remarkable. It wasn't me, Elijah said. She did the work. Yes, but you helped her believe she could. That's not something many people have ever done for her. He paused. She's had nothing but doctors, therapists, and cold promises since the accident. You treated her like she was whole before anyone else did. Elijah didn't respond. Grayson leaned forward. I want to offer you something. Elijah raised an eyebrow. You're not going to try to pay me to go away, are you? No, Grayson said, dead serious. I want to hire you. Elijah blinked. I already work for you. Not as a driver. As Caroline's personal mobility coach. We'll make it official. On paper. Salary. Benefits. Hell, you name it. Elijah studied him. Why? Grayson stood, walking slowly to the window. Because whatever you did, it worked. And not just physically. Caroline's alive again. And I'd be a fool to ignore that. He turned back around. But this comes with conditions. Of course it does. First, Grayson said, no more secrecy. If you're going to help her, we do it out in the open. Real therapy. Real documentation. We're not hiding behind shadows anymore. Elijah nodded. Second, Grayson continued, no romantic entanglement. She's my daughter. She's vulnerable. I don't need to explain that further. Elijah stiffened. She's also grown. And she's not stupid. No, she's not, Grayson agreed. Which is why I'm asking. Not demanding. Elijah looked him dead in the eye. I'm not trying to hurt her. I believe that. Silence hung for a beat. Then Elijah stood. If Caroline wants me to stay, I stay. But not because of you. Grayson gave a tight nod. Fair enough. Later that night, Elijah found Caroline at the garden terrace, legs propped on a velvet footstool, looking out over the ocean. The wind caught her hair, made her look like a painting. You said yes? She asked without turning. Only if you want me here. She smiled. I do. They sat quietly for a long moment. Then she turned toward him. Do you think they'll ever believe it? Who? The world. The ones watching. He shrugged. They'll believe whatever makes them feel something. Caroline nodded. Then let's give them something real. She stood slowly, held out her hand. No music this time, she said. Just faith. And under the starlight, in the hush of wind and waves, Elijah took her hand again. And they danced, slow, steady, and real. No audience, no cameras, just two broken people, building something whole. The story didn't fade. If anything, it spread wider. By Thursday, Elijah's face was on morning news segments, podcasts, and daytime talk shows. Not just footage of the gala, but old photos from his dance career, clips from years back when he'd performed behind Jalen King at the Bet Awards, even a blurry hospital shot from the night he broke his spine. Someone dug it all up, and now everyone wanted to know, how did a backup dancer turned private driver help the billionaire's paralyzed daughter walk again? By Friday, the calls shifted from curiosity to opportunity. A publisher offered Elijah a book deal. A streaming platform asked about documentary rights. Even a celebrity wellness guru sent a DM. Would love to collaborate. Your story is deeply moving. Elijah ignored most of it. He wasn't chasing fame. He wasn't even sure he wanted attention. But every time he thought about backing away, he remembered Caroline's face when she took that first step. And he couldn't walk away from that. Neither could she. That weekend, the Grayson estate transformed. Physical therapy gear arrived, resistance bands, balance bars, gait harnesses. A corner of the East Wing was converted into a studio with padded flooring and full-length mirrors. It was no longer just about Elijah helping Caroline. It was a program now. A mission. Caroline insisted they call it Project Real Steps. I don't want it to sound fancy, she said. Because this wasn't science. It was will. It was belief. And it was hard as hell. Grayson agreed to fund it. And Elijah agreed to lead it. Still, not everyone was convinced. Especially not the board at Grayson Innovations. At the next shareholders' meeting, Malcolm Grayson stood at the podium, suit crisp, jaw tight. I understand concerns about the spectacle, he began, pacing slowly. But what you saw at the gala wasn't a performance. It was proof that sometimes the solution to a problem doesn't come from a lab. It comes from a human connection. An older board member raised a hand. Mr. Grayson, with all due respect, the media's calling this a miracle. But without clinical proof, it risks discrediting your entire foundation. This man, Elijah Brooks, is not a doctor. No, Grayson said, voice steady. He's something rarer. He's a man who gave my daughter her life back when every expert told her she had none left. The room fell still. We're not pivoting from science, Grayson continued. We're adding soul to it. Some scoffed, some applauded, but one voice stood out from the back. I want to speak. It was Caroline. She rolled herself forward, still in the chair, though she hadn't needed it most of the week. I'm the one you're worried about, right? She said, looking around. Your investment, the face of the tragedy, the poster girl for spinal recovery. No one answered. She leaned in. Well, here's the truth. For 2 years, I did everything the doctors told me. I took every pill, went to every session, smiled for every interview, and I got nowhere. I was dying from the inside out. She looked at Elijah, who stood just behind the curtain, unseen. And then someone came along who didn't see me as broken. He didn't treat me like a patient. He treated me like a person. She paused, voice breaking slightly. And that's when I started to heal. The silence that followed wasn't heavy. It was holy. Later that night, Caroline and Elijah sat by the fountain outside the estate, a speaker playing soft jazz between them. Her legs were curled under her, bare feet pressed to the stone. "Why'd you leave dancing?" she asked suddenly. He didn't answer right away. "I didn't," he said. "It left me." She turned her head. "I mean, after the accident. I tried to go back, but I couldn't move the way I used to. Couldn't trust my body. I got bitter. I started drinking too much. Lost people. Lost myself." "You didn't lose everything," she said softly. He met her eyes. "No," he said. "Not everything." She leaned closer. "So what now?" He exhaled slowly. "We keep going. We build this thing. We help people who've been told no one too many times. And after that," he smiled faintly, "we see where the steps lead." But not everyone wanted them to succeed. A week later, an anonymous op-ed appeared in the Los Angeles Tribune, "The Grayson Stunt, Miracle or Manipulation." It was brutal. Called Elijah a fraud. Accused Caroline of exaggerating her condition for attention. Even hinted that the whole thing was a ploy to boost Grayson's public image. There were no names attached, but one sentence stood out. "Ask yourself, if your child suddenly stood up at a party, would your first instinct be to let her dance or call an ambulance?" Caroline was furious. Grayson wanted legal action. But Elijah said nothing. He just printed the article out, folded it, and tucked it into his notebook. When Caroline asked why, he said, "Because someday, someone else will need to see that. And they'll need to know we didn't quit because of it." The next phase of Project Real Steps launched a month later. A small group of volunteers, 4 patients, each told by doctors they'd never walk again. Elijah met with them one-on-one, not with clipboards or diagnoses, but with stories. He told them about his fall, his fight, his failure, and then he showed them what was still possible. It wasn't flashy. It was slow, grueling, emotional, and real. Each week, one patient took one more step. Each week, the belief grew louder than the doubt. But just as things were beginning to bloom, Caroline received a letter that froze everything. From her mother, whom she hadn't seen in over 8 years. And inside the envelope was a photograph, one Caroline hadn't known existed. A picture of her as a child, standing between her mother and father, all of them smiling. And a second note scrawled in pen. "I saw you dance. I'm coming back. Mom." Caroline stared at the letter for a long time. Then she handed it to Elijah. "I don't know what this means," she whispered. Elijah looked down at the page, and his stomach turned cold. Because at the bottom of the note, there was something else. Something small. A set of initials in the corner. D.H. Dean Harper. The man who nearly pulled the trigger. He wasn't gone. And he wasn't finished. Elijah stood at the edge of the terrace, the letter gripped in his hand. The initials stared back at him like a warning scratched into the corner of a dream. D.H. Dean Harper. Caroline was quiet behind him, her breath shallow, arms crossed against her chest like she was holding herself together. "You think it's real?" she asked. Elijah didn't answer right away. The question wasn't whether it was real. It was why now? Why would her mother reappear after all these years? And why would Dean Harper be the one carrying the message? He finally turned. "Let's start with what you know," he said. "What happened with your mom?" Caroline shrugged, but it was the kind of shrug people give when their ribs hurt from holding something in too long. "She left when I was 10. My dad told everyone she went to focus on herself, but even at 10, I knew that was a load of crap. She just disappeared. And you never heard from her again?" "Not a word," Caroline said. "No calls, no birthday cards, nothing." She looked down at the letter. Her thumb grazed the edge like she could feel something hidden in the paper grain. "I thought she was dead." Elijah's voice was low. Maybe that's what someone wanted you to think. Caroline looked up at him. You think Dean found her? He nodded once. Or she found him. That night, Elijah drove home the long way. Not because he liked the view, he barely noticed it, but because his mind was chewing on something and needed the time. He knew Dean wasn't the type to go quietly. After the gala, the man's reputation had taken a hit. Fired in front of half of Las Elite. A viral clip of his meltdown. No soft exit. No PR buffer. The kind of humiliation people don't forgive. And now he was lurking in the shadows again. This wasn't just about Caroline anymore. This was about control, revenge, and maybe something worse. Elijah parked outside his apartment, stared at the cracked ceiling of his car, and dialed a number he hadn't used in a long time. It rang once, twice, then, yo. Marcus, it's me. A pause. Then, damn, I haven't heard from you in what, 3 years? Thought you fell off. Need a favor. Elijah Brooks needing favors? This must be good. I need eyes on a guy named Dean Harper. Used to work under Malcolm Grayson. Got fired after the gala incident. Elijah. It's important. Another beat of silence. You in trouble? Not yet, Elijah said. But someone's coming for that girl. And I think they're gonna play dirty. I'll dig, Marcus said. But you owe me a real story when this is over. Deal. The next morning, Caroline didn't come to training. Elijah found her in the old music room, the one with the baby grand piano no one ever played. She was sitting on the bench, knees pulled up, a sheet of old music laid across her lap. She didn't look up. She used to play, she said softly. My mom. This was her favorite room. Elijah didn't speak. He just sat beside her, careful to let the silence breathe. She had this way of touching the keys like they were glass. Even mad, she played soft. I'd sit here and just listen. It was the only time the house felt warm. She blinked fast. She used to call me Birdie. Said I was light and full of noise. Elijah watched her. You ever ask your dad why she left? Caroline laughed once, a dry, bitter sound. I asked. Once. He said she broke, and some people can't be fixed. She turned to him. What if she didn't leave me? What if she was taken? Elijah's stomach turned again. That's a big what if. I know. He hesitated. You want to find out? She nodded. Even if it hurts. That night, Elijah met with Marcus at a cafe in Echo Park. Marcus had always been deep in the undercurrents, not illegal, but close enough to hear the whispers people tried to hide. He slid a folder across the table. Elijah, you're not gonna like this. Just give it to me. Elijah, Dean Harper's not working solo. He's got a shell company. Some quiet backers. But get this, the name that shows up most is Danielle Hunt. Elijah froze. Danielle Hunt, he echoed. That name means something. He swallowed hard. That's Caroline's mother. Marcus nodded grimly. Looks like she's been back in LA for a while. Living under the radar. And she's tied into Dean's company 2 months before the gala. 2 months. Right. Before Caroline even started standing. Exactly. Elijah sat back, mind racing. So this wasn't about the gala. Or even the dance. No, Marcus said. This goes deeper. Whatever they are planning, it started before you ever touched that girl's hand. When Elijah returned to the estate, it was well past midnight. Caroline was waiting for him. She didn't ask where he'd been. She didn't have to. He sat beside her on the garden steps, the folder in his hands. I found her. Caroline inhaled, sharp and fast. She's he. He nodded. But there's more. He told her everything. About Dean. About the shell company. About the quiet money moving in shadows. And then he handed her the final page. A photograph. Grainy, but unmistakable. Dean Harper and Danielle Hunt. Standing outside a building with a sign behind them. Grayson Neurological Research Initiative. Caroline stared at the picture for a long time. They are building something, she whispered. Elijah nodded. And whatever it is, they needed you out of the picture. She looked up at him. Then I'm not stepping out. Caroline. No, she said, voice steel now. They thought I was weak. That I'd break if they pushed hard enough. But I'm still standing. I walked through their plan. She stood, barefoot on the stone. I'm going to finish what we started. And Elijah knew the miracle wasn't that she danced. The miracle was that they'd underestimated her. And now she was coming for them. Caroline didn't sleep. Neither did Elijah. They spent the early hours of the morning combing through everything Marcus had uncovered: timelines, business filings, property purchases. Each detail peeled away another layer of the past, and every layer pulled them closer to a truth neither of them was ready for. By dawn, Caroline was pacing. I can't believe he brought her into this. Elijah leaned against the wall, arms crossed. We still don't know who brought who. She stopped in her tracks. What do you mean? I mean, maybe she's not the puppet, hey. Maybe she's the hand. Caroline stared at him. You think my mom's doing this to me? I think she's got reasons, Elijah said carefully, but none of them excuse what she's let happen. Caroline sat down, rubbed her temples. I used to dream about this moment, you know? Her showing up, explaining everything, telling me she was sorry, that it wasn't her fault. Elijah moved closer, crouched in front of her. Dreams and people are different things. One can break the other. Caroline met his eyes. I want to talk to her. Elijah didn't flinch. Are you sure? I need to hear her say it. Whatever it is. I need to look her in the eye. Elijah nodded slowly. Then we do it your way. By noon, Marcus had a location. A warehouse in Culver City, industrial, fenced off, registered under a dummy name. The same address where the photo had been taken. They didn't tell Grayson. He was out of town anyway, some emergency board meeting in New York. Caroline left a note. She didn't expect him to understand. This was her story now. Her chapter to write. Elijah drove them in a plain gray car with plates swapped from another vehicle. Just in case. He wasn't paranoid. He was experienced. Some things you learn the hard way. As they approached the warehouse, Caroline's hand gripped the passenger door tight. You okay? Elijah asked. No, she said, but I'm doing it anyway. They pulled up half a block away, then walked the rest. Caroline moved slowly but steady. No braces, no cane, just willpower. The building was nondescript, just concrete and faded steel, a chain-link gate yawning open like a secret waiting to be told. Elijah pushed the door open, and everything changed. Inside was not a warehouse. It was a lab. Clean, humming, bright. Medical equipment lined the walls, all high-end, surgical stations, neural mapping monitors, even a cryo chamber unit in the corner. And in the center of the room, Danielle Hunt. Caroline froze. Her mother looked different than she remembered. Older, of course, but leaner, sharper, like she'd been living on the edge of some grand design and hadn't slept in years. Danielle looked up and smiled. Birdie, she said. Caroline blinked, but didn't move. Don't call me that. Danielle stepped forward. You're walking. Don't pretend like you're surprised. I'm not, Danielle said. I knew you would. Caroline's voice hardened. Did you know before or after you disappeared? Danielle exhaled, slow and measured. I didn't vanish. Your father made it impossible for me to stay. Elijah's jaw tensed, but he kept quiet. Caroline stepped forward. Don't blame him for what you ran from. I didn't run, Danielle snapped. I fought. But Malcolm has a way of controlling the narrative, just like he controlled my access to you. Then why now? Caroline asked. Why show up after all this time with Dean Harper of all people? Danielle glanced at Elijah, then back to her daughter. Because this, she gestured around the lab, was supposed to be ours. A new approach, a revolution. And he stole it, buried it in bureaucracy. You think his foundation was for healing? No, it was for profit. Elijah stepped forward now. So you team up with the one guy who pulled a gun on your daughter. Danielle's eyes narrowed. Dean's methods weren't mine, but he believes in the science. In the results. You think what happened at the gala was science? Elijah said, voice low. That wasn't your machine. That was her will. I inspired that will, Danielle snapped. She has my fire, my drive. I made her strong. No, Caroline said quietly. You left. I made myself strong. Danielle flinched. I'm here now, she offered, more careful this time. And what we've built, it's real. We can help people. We can change everything. And what do you want in return? Elijah asked. Danielle's eyes locked on Caroline. I want my daughter back. Silence filled the room. Then Caroline spoke, calm and clear. You want redemption, but you're not ready for truth. Danielle's lips tightened. Here's my truth, Caroline continued. You're not a villain. You're not a savior. You're a ghost in a lab coat. And I'm not letting you haunt me anymore. Danielle's face went cold. I could have fixed you, she said. I was never broken, Caroline replied. Then she turned and walked out the door without looking back. Back in the car, Caroline sat quietly for a long time. Elijah didn't push. Then she finally spoke. She wasn't here for me. She was here for her legacy. She saw what she lost, Elijah said, and she wanted a shortcut back into the story. Caroline looked at him. You think she'll come after me again? He didn't answer, but they both knew the answer was yes. And next time, she might not come alone. That night, back at the estate, Grayson called. He was already on his way home, and he'd seen the photo. Where are you? He asked, voice sharp. Safe, Caroline said, and stronger than she thinks I am. You should have told me. I needed to do this myself. There was a pause. Then, she's not done. I know. Then be ready. She hung up and turned to Elijah. I want to tell the world the truth. You sure? She nodded. No more whispers. No more hiding. We do it on our terms. Elijah smiled, just a little. Then let's dance one more time. She raised an eyebrow. Now? No, he said. I mean publicly. On stage. Lights. Cameras. All of it. You think I'm ready? He looked at her with quiet certainty. I know you are. The next day, they made the call. To every reporter, every network, every camera that had once doubted them, and gave them a single date, a single location. 1 week from now, live, Caroline Grayson would dance again. And this time, the world would know exactly who she was. The stage wasn't set yet. Not physically, not metaphorically. They'd rented a historic theater in downtown L.A., small by Billionaire standards, but rich with charm. Red velvet seats, ornate gold trim, a stage that creaked with memories. The kind of place where moments could become something more. Caroline stood at center stage barefoot, arms folded, staring out at the empty rows like they were an ocean she wasn't sure she wanted to cross. You're allowed to be scared, Elijah said behind her. I'm not scared, she whispered. I'm furious. He waited. I spent years waiting for permission, she said. From doctors, from my dad, from my own body. I waited for someone to tell me I could try again. I waited so long that it became easier not to. Elijah stepped beside her. You're not waiting anymore. No, she said, turning to him. Now I'm telling them what's possible. She reached for his hand. I'm not doing it alone, though. You never were. The plan came together fast. Project Real Steps would host its first public demonstration. Not a fundraiser, not a charity stunt. A real, vulnerable, live moment. Caroline dancing. A few of the first patients walking. Raw, imperfect, true, but not everyone wanted it to happen. The first sign came 2 nights later. A brick through the training studio window. No note, just shattered glass and silence. The second was a letter slid under Elijah's apartment door. This isn't your story to tell. Step back, or we'll do it for you. The handwriting was familiar. He showed it to Caroline. Her face hardened. She's trying to scare us. Elijah nodded. That or she's trying to build the ending before we do. Meanwhile, the city was buzzing. Tickets sold out in hours, even though it wasn't a performance. Just one night. One chance to witness something honest. Reporters begged for early access. Talk shows requested interviews. But Caroline said no. No more prepackaged sound bites. They'll see it live or not at all. Grayson offered to tighten security. I don't trust that woman, he told Elijah in private. And I sure as hell don't trust Dean. Elijah didn't disagree. But he had a deeper worry he didn't voice. What if Danielle didn't plan to stop the event? What if she planned to own it? On the day of the show, Caroline woke early. She didn't speak for the first hour. Just stretched, meditated, put on her soft cotton rehearsal clothes, not the dress the stylists had begged her to wear. I don't want to look miraculous, she said. I want to look human. The others arrived soon after, the 4 original patients from Project Real Steps. None of them had walked more than 10 steps unaided. All of them insisted on standing tonight. We're not here to impress, one of them said. We're here to prove we're trying. The theater buzzed with low voices, crews setting lights, mics being tested. And then the guest list arrived. Elijah scanned it. Danielle's name wasn't on it, but Dean Harper's was, registered under a Foundation alias. Elijah flagged it immediately. Grayson ordered extra security at the entrance, but they both knew if someone really wanted in, they'd get in. The clock ticked down. At 7:04 p.m., the lights dimmed. Caroline stood backstage, hand clenched around Elijah's. She was shaking. Not from fear, from fire. You got this, he said quietly. I know, she whispered. Then she stepped out. Into silence. The theater didn't erupt. It held its breath. Caroline walked across the stage, slow, precise, each step a declaration. Her body wasn't flawless. She wobbled once, had to steady herself. But when she reached center stage, she stood tall. Then she looked out and began to speak. My name is Caroline Grayson, she said. I was told I'd never walk again. And for 2 years, I believed that. She let the silence land. But then someone stood beside me instead of above me. And I found my strength. Not through medicine. Not through miracles. Through movement. Through music. Through belief. She turned, held out her hand. Elijah stepped into the light. No suit. No shoes. Just the man who danced with her in silence when no one believed she ever would. And together, they moved. No choreography. No fanfare. Just rhythm and trust. It wasn't perfect. It was alive. And when it ended, the audience stood. Every single person. No one clapped. They simply stood with her. In awe. In solidarity. Then came the voice. From the balcony. Isn't it funny? A woman called out, how much easier it is to inspire than to tell the truth. Gasps rippled. Elijah turned fast. Spotlight swung upward. And there she was. Danielle Hunt. Standing. Microphone in hand. Next to her, Dean Harper. Security started moving, but she raised a hand. I'm not here to cause trouble, she said. I'm here to offer context. Grayson stood halfway up from his seat, face red. Get her out of here. But Caroline lifted a hand. No, let her speak. Danielle stepped forward. I built this project. My research. My vision. Before you all bow to these two, you deserve to know the truth. I created the foundation of what helped my daughter walk. Elijah felt Caroline's grip tighten. Danielle continued. She didn't recover on faith alone. Her improvement started before the gala, when Dean and I began experimental sessions, off-record, to avoid red tape. He believed in her, even when Malcolm didn't. Elijah stepped toward the MIC. Then why the secrecy? Why let the world believe she was helpless? Why hide? Danielle smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Because narrative wins. And you stole mine. Silence. Then Caroline stepped forward. Voice clear. You weren't here when I fell. You weren't here when I screamed in pain or cried into my pillow every night. Elijah was. He helped me not because he wanted credit, but because he cared. Her voice cracked. Just once. You don't get to rewrite that. Danielle didn't flinch, but Dean did. He moved suddenly toward the edge, pulled something from his coat. Elijah lunged. So did security. A loud snap echoed, not a gunshot, but a scream of panic. Dean hit the ground hard. Tackled. Unarmed. He had only pulled a press badge. But the message was clear. He wanted attention. And he got it. The night ended with more questions than answers. But one thing was certain. Caroline Grayson had not been silenced. And her story belonged to her now. Not to Dean. Not to Danielle. Not even to Elijah. She stood alone as the curtain fell. And the world stood with her. The world didn't stop spinning, but it tilted. By morning, the footage from the theater had gone viral. Again. Only this time, it wasn't just Caroline dancing that held attention. It was Danielle Hunt's ambush, her bitter speech, and Dean Harper's dramatic takedown that lit up every feed, every headline. Miracle daughter confronts estranged mother on stage. Ex-executive crashes redemption dance. gets dragged offstage. The Grayson saga. What's real, what's performed, and who owns the truth? Caroline sat on the sunroom couch in her father's house, legs stretched across Elijah's lap, a tablet in her hand and dark circles under her eyes. She was exhausted, but not shaken. This is what she wanted, Caroline said quietly. She didn't care about stopping me. She just wanted her name on my moment. Elijah didn't argue. He knew she was right. Grayson stood nearby, hands in his pockets, watching the footage replay on the TV with a tense jaw. You want me to put a gag order on her? He asked. We can get the legal team moving. Shut her down before she spins this any worse. No, Caroline said, not looking up. Let her talk. Grayson raised a brow. You sure? She's already lost the story, Caroline said. All she has now are rewrites no one asked for. Elijah gave her a look. That's a risky bet. It's not a bet, she said. It's freedom. Later that day, Elijah stepped out to clear his head. He wasn't wired for fame, and now the spotlight was glued to him like a second skin. People were camping outside his apartment. Reporters yelled questions at him from passing cars. So he drove east, away from the noise, to the place he used to train before everything fell apart, a little cement lot behind an old gym in Boyle Heights, tucked between a faded wall of graffiti and a rusted chain-link fence. It was empty now, just how he liked it. He took off his shoes, stepped onto the warm concrete, and started moving. Not a performance, not a routine, just him, the music in his head, and a body that finally trusted itself again. Each movement bled tension. Each pause was a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. When he finally stopped, sweat pouring down his neck, a slow clap echoed behind him. He turned fast. Marcus, you still got it, Marcus said, grinning. Could have warned me you were watching. I figured you needed space, Marcus said. But also, I got news. Elijah grabbed his towel, wiped his face. Go on. Danielle and Dean? They are not just freelancing. They are backed by someone bigger. Who? Marcus pulled out his phone, tapped a few times, then handed it over. On the screen, a corporate profile. Thurix Labs. Medical biotech. Quiet. Heavily funded. Headquartered out of Switzerland but with quiet ties in LA, Boston, and Beijing. And one name listed under advisory board, Danielle Hunt. Elijah whistled low. She's got serious backing. Serious interest, Marcus corrected. They are not just investing in her, they're banking on her replicating whatever you two did. But she didn't do it. They don't care, Marcus said. They just want results. And if they can't get the truth, they'll package the illusion. Elijah clenched his jaw. They are building something off our story. Yeah, Marcus said. And if you don't move fast, they'll own the next chapter. That night, Elijah and Caroline sat in the old studio at the back of the estate. Lights dimmed, just the soft hum of a night pressing against the windows. I know what they are doing, Elijah said. I figured, Caroline replied. The world doesn't wait long before turning miracles into markets. They want to clone what we had, Elijah said. Bottle it, sell it, erase the parts that made it human. She nodded. Then let's give them something they can't copy. 3 days later, Caroline posted a video. No PR team. No makeup. No edits. Just her, seated on the edge of a bench, looking straight into the lens. I didn't heal because of a lab. I didn't walk because of an injection. I didn't dance because of data points. I did it because someone saw me. She paused. He saw me when I was angry, stubborn, tired, and too scared to try. He didn't sell me hope. He gave me space. And that space turned into strength. Another beat. Now they want to claim that. Package it. Profit from it. But healing isn't a product. It's a process. A long, painful, personal process. And I won't let them steal mine. She ended the video with one final line. Truth doesn't need approval. Then she posted it. And walked away. The video hit 5 million views in under 24 hours. By the end of the week, 23 million. Other survivors began posting their own versions, walking, standing, dancing, falling, crying. Some still in chairs, some on crutches, all of them holding something stronger than Danielle could sell. Their truth. Elijah watched the movement unfold like wildfire. He didn't say much. Just kept working with Caroline. Kept showing up. Then one morning, his phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You made your point. But this isn't over. You should have stayed in the shadows. Now you'll both burn in the light. No name. But he didn't need one. Because it wasn't Danielle's tone. It was Dean's. And Elijah knew then. They weren't just angry. They were desperate. And desperate people don't go away quietly. Elijah didn't tell Caroline about the text right away. She was laughing when it came through, barefoot in the courtyard, mid-session with one of the real steps patients. The woman, Tessa, was taking her fourth unaided step, and Caroline clapped like a proud older sister, bright-eyed, hair pulled back in a messy bun, no makeup, just joy. Elijah stood at the edge of the scene, phone buzzing in his palm like a warning shot. Now you'll both burn in the light. It echoed in his head. He slipped the phone into his pocket, smiled, clapped with her, because there was no way in hell he was letting Dean Harper steal this moment. But deep down, he knew this piece was borrowed, and it was already running out. That night, Grayson summoned Elijah to the study. He rarely did that anymore. Since the gala, since the dance, since Caroline had stopped being broken in his eyes and started being something more, Grayson had kept his distance. But now, he was pacing. He only paced when something was bleeding underneath the surface. You've been tracking this, right? He asked, tossing a folder on the desk. Inside, screenshots of anonymous blog posts, weird forums, and pieced-together conspiracy theories. The Grayson recovery is a lie. Driver stages miracle for profit. Where's the proof? No doctor. No protocol. Just a dance. These are fringe voices, Elijah said. Noise. Grayson stopped pacing. They are not fringe anymore. Thurix Labs is amplifying them. Quietly. They are paying influencers, podcasters, even some medical figures. I had a friend at CNN call me, said they were approached with a leak. About you. Elijah's throat tightened. Me? Grayson nodded. Background stuff. Old records. Medical history. They are trying to frame you as unstable. A fraud. Some kind of con artist who manipulated my daughter for attention. Jesus. They are going to push it hard. Paint the miracle as manipulation. The dance as seduction. And you as the villain. Elijah swallowed. And what are you going to do? Grayson met his eyes. Stand behind you. As long as you're clean. Elijah's jaw flexed. You think I'm hiding something? Grayson didn't answer directly. He just said, when the fire starts, be sure you know who you are. The leak dropped 2 days later. An anonymous article with documents attached. A partial psychiatric evaluation from Elijah's recovery days. A photo of him drunk outside a club in 2016, knees buckled, arms draped around someone who looked worse off than him. A false claim that he'd been arrested for assault. He hadn't. It was dismissed before it even made court. None of it was recent. But none of it mattered. The damage was instant. Headlines twisted facts into poison. Driver turned healer or reckless former addict. Truth behind the Grayson miracle raises doubts. Was Caroline groomed into performance? Elijah sat on his apartment floor, phone face down, TV muted, rage burning through him like a fever. He could handle the lies. But Caroline, she wasn't built for this kind of venom. Except, when he finally reached the estate, he found her in the gym, arms wrapped around a punching bag, sweat dripping, breathing hard. She wasn't crying. She was fighting. She looked at him, eyes blazing. They're cowards, she said. I'm sorry. She shook her head. Don't apologize for your past. It's part of you, and it's part of what saved me. He stepped closer. They are twisting everything. Then let's untwist it, she said. How? Together. They sat down with a camera crew that night. No scripts, no makeup, just the two of them in the studio where it started. And they told the story, piece by piece. Her accident, his injury, how they met, how the Feist dance wasn't a miracle, it was a whisper, a breath, a belief between two broken people that healing didn't have to look perfect to be real. Elijah told the truth about his past, about his fall from grace, about the bottle, about the rehab center, about the day he thought he'd never stand again. And Caroline looked into the lens and said, he didn't save me because he was flawless. He saved me because he knew what pain looked like. The video was raw, and it was real. And within 48 hours, it had 40 million views. More than the theater, more than the gala, more than the lies. But as the video surged, something else surfaced. Marcus called Elijah at 3 a.m. "They are not done," Marcus said. "I found something. I don't know if I should have looked, but..." "What is it?" "There's an internal memo from the RICS, buried in encrypted drives. Danielle signed off on something experimental, something involving minors, overseas." Elijah sat up. "Minors? Clinical trials. Off the books. Some failed. Badly. You sure it's her?" "She signed it DH, and the wire trail goes straight to an account she controls." Elijah gripped the edge of his mattress. "If that gets out..." "She's finished," Marcus said. "But so are you too. They'll try to spin it. Say you hacked, say you fabricated it. Then we don't leak it." "What?" "We let her bring herself down." "Ow!" "By giving her what she wants." The next day, Elijah reached out to Danielle Hunt. One meeting, on neutral ground. No cameras, no threats. He told her what he knew, what he had, and then he made the offer. "You go public. Admit you cross a line. Say you falsified research. Say the dance wasn't part of your trial. Say it was hers. Say it was real." She stared at him. "You're threatening me." "No," Elijah said. "I'm giving you a chance to stop being a ghost." Danielle stood slowly. "I'm not the villain." Elijah's voice was soft. "Then prove it." She didn't agree. But 3 days later, a statement hit every major outlet. Not an apology, not an admission of guilt. Just this: the progress made by Caroline Grayson stands as a testament to her strength and the support she received outside of formal treatment. I cannot, in good conscience, claim ownership of her journey, and I never will again. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough, and it left Dean Harper alone. For now. That night, Elijah found Caroline in the studio again. Alone. No music, just silence. She turned to him. "You think this is over?" He stepped close. "No, but I think we just turned the page." She reached for his hand, and with no cameras, no audience, no threat chasing them, they danced. Again. The first time Caroline let herself cry in front of Elijah, it wasn't after the gala. Not after the smear campaign. Not even after the meeting with her mother. It was the night the last patient from Project Real Steps walked 10 feet across the studio without assistance. His name was Jordan, 21, paralyzed since he was 16. He stumbled after the 8th step, but caught himself, shook his head, kept going. Caroline clapped, whooped like she'd won the lottery, and then she sat down against the mirror wall and wept. Not the kind of sobbing that made noise, the kind that let go. Elijah sat next to her, not saying a word, letting the sound of Jordan's laughter fill the space between them. "It was never supposed to be about me," she said softly, through the tears. "I know. They made me into a symbol, a weapon, a headline. I didn't ask for any of that. I know. But this," she nodded toward Jordan, toward the other patients watching from the side of the room, "this is why we did it. This is what matters." She wiped her face with the sleeve of her hoodie. "I want more of it," she said. "More steps. More people." "You're not done," Elijah said. She shook her head. "Not even close." Later that week, Caroline called a meeting with Grayson. Not a request, a meeting. Like a businesswoman. Like someone who finally knew the weight of her own voice. She laid out her vision in clear, sharp lines. "I want to take real steps national. We don't need big hospitals. We need trainers, rooms, music, time, and belief. I want community centers, not clinics. Coaches, not clinicians. People who see what's possible, not what's missing." Grayson raised an eyebrow. "You know that costs a lot of money." "I know we have it," she said. He smirked. "You sound like me." "No," Caroline said. "I sound like me, finally." She slid a proposal across his desk. He opened it. At the top, Real Steps Foundation. Under it, founder and chair Caroline Grayson. And under that, Director of Mobility and Wellness our Elijah Brooks. He scanned the page, then nodded once. "Let's build it." It should have been the beginning of peace. The storms were calming. Public opinion was swinging back in their favor. Danielle had gone quiet, and Dean Harper hadn't surfaced in weeks. Caroline and Elijah had their blueprint. They were planning a national tour of recovery workshops, starting in Chicago, then Atlanta, then Houston. Everything was finally moving forward. And then came the fire. It started in the early hours of the morning. Elijah woke to a call from Marcus. "Something's wrong," Marcus said. "I was checking traffic cams near your apartment. I saw smoke." Elijah bolted upright. He ran outside, barefoot, into the thick smell of burning plastic and scorched wood. His studio, the one he'd just leased with Caroline, where they'd planned to train the next generation of mobility coaches. Gone. Flames tearing through the windows. Firefighters already there, red lights slicing through the night. He staggered back, coughing, as the heat washed over him. And then the smell hit. Accelerant. Someone had set it on purpose. The arson report confirmed it later. Gas poured along the back entrance, ignited with a delayed fuse. No note, no message, just destruction. But Elijah didn't need a signature to know who was behind it, because 2 hours after the fire, he got another text. Didn't stay in the shadows. Now the light is burning. DH. Except it wasn't Danielle. It was him. Dean Harper. Alive. And back. Grayson didn't waste time. He upped security. Called in federal contacts. Hired an entire legal team to trace Dean's money and movements. "We're going to put him away this time," Grayson said, jaw tight. "He won't get close again." But Elijah knew better. Dean wasn't trying to get close anymore. He was trying to erase them from a distance. To salt the earth so nothing could grow. And the scariest part? He wasn't failing. Caroline wanted to fight back. Publicly. Legally. Even violently. "Let me say something," she told Elijah, pacing the garden at dusk. "Let me drag him into the light. Let me show people who he really is." Elijah watched her. "You do that," he said. "You give him exactly what he wants. Attention. Fuel. The headline becomes you versus him. Not hope. Not healing. Just another war." She stopped. "So we do nothing." He shook his head. "We do the only thing he can't undo. Which is, we rebuild." So they did. Faster this time. Grayson doubled the budget. The city offered a temporary space downtown. Volunteers poured in from across the country. Patients sent videos, messages, and support from every state. And in the middle of the chaos, someone showed up at the estate unannounced. Danielle. Unarmed. Alone. Not as a scientist. Not as a strategist. Just as a mother. Elijah watched from the window as Caroline met her at the edge of the driveway. No hugs. No breakdowns. Just a conversation neither of them could hear. But when it was over, Danielle turned around. Walked away. And Caroline came back inside with a simple look in her eyes. Peace. Not forgiveness. But peace. That night, Elijah and Caroline stood in the new space. Floors still unfinished, mirrors still being installed, the smell of fresh paint in the air. She leaned her head on his shoulder. "You ever think we'd get here?" she asked. "No." She smiled. "Me neither." Then she looked at him. "I want to dance again." He turned to her. "Now." "No, not for them. For me. For us." She stepped backward into the open room, toes brushing the hardwood, hands lifted like a question. And Elijah answered it. He stepped in. No lights, no cameras, just music in their heads and air in their lungs. They moved together, not like performers, but like survivors. And in every sway, every pivot, every reach, there was a quiet message. We're still here. We're still standing. We're still dancing. And we're not done. The morning after the fire and Danielle's final visit, the new real step space came alive faster than anyone expected. Volunteers painted the walls while carpenters installed balance bars. A group of high school dancers showed up to scrub floors, and 3 of the original program's patients, Jordan, Tessa, and Ravi, offered to help train the next round. Momentum wasn't just back. It was a storm. But Caroline could feel the air shifting again. Something deeper. Something quieter. It started with the letters. Not from Dean. From strangers. Hundreds of them. Some handwritten. Some emailed. Others left in voice memos or voicemails forwarded by staff. Survivors. Parents. People in recovery, nurses, veterans, teens with old injuries, middle-aged women with fresh diagnoses, all saying the same thing. We thought we were broken, but we saw you dance, and we got up. By the end of the week, Elijah and Caroline were buried in stories they hadn't asked for, stories they'd inspired. And Caroline, for the first time, looked overwhelmed by the hope. Not the pressure, the hope. I don't know how to carry this, she admitted one night as they sat in the unfinished lobby, surrounded by boxes of letters and drawings and handmade bracelets. You don't have to carry it, Elijah said gently. Just honor it. She nodded slowly, then turned to him. Come with me to Chicago. It caught him off guard. Chicago. First city on the tour. Kickoff event. A full auditorium. Kids from clinics, rehab patients, dancers, nurses, soldiers. I want to dance there. On stage. With you. He looked at her. You sure? I want the first big step to be ours. She hesitated. And I want people to see you, too. Not just me. Elijah leaned back, looked at the ceiling. You're not scared. Terrified, she said with a grin. But that hasn't stopped us yet. Chicago's auditorium was bigger than anything they'd faced so far. 1,500 seats. A full crew, national press, multiple live streams. The day before the event, Caroline stood on stage staring into the empty rows. This isn't like the theater, she whispered. No, Elijah said. This time, the whole world's watching on purpose. She looked over at him. We're ready. He nodded. I think we've been ready. But just after midnight, Elijah got a call. Marcus. He almost didn't answer. He was lying on the hotel room floor stretching, calm for the first time in days. Talk to me, he said. You need to sit up. Elijah Saturday. What is it? They found Dean. Elijah froze. Where? Not where. What? Elijah's blood turned cold. Marcus continued. There's a site. Hidden network. They've been collecting footage, spying. Dean built a trail of recordings. Of you. Of Caroline. Sessions, walks, dances, conversations in the studio. Elijah stood up fast. You're telling me he bugged us? Yes, or someone close to him did. Jesus. That's not the worst part, Marcus said, voice lower now. There's chatter. He's planning something for the tour, possibly the Chicago event. An attack? I don't know, but it's organized, and it's personal. He's unhinged. Elijah swallowed. He's going to try to ruin this. Elijah didn't tell Caroline. Not yet. She was too calm, too steady, too ready. He couldn't rattle her now. Instead, he called Grayson. Explained everything. Grayson's voice was tight with rage. I'll pull in a private security team. Plainclothes. Full sweep of the venue. No cops. Not unless it escalates. We don't want this to look like a war zone. Elijah nodded. Agreed. And Elijah. Yay. If he shows up, we stop being polite. The next evening, the Chicago event began. Elijah stood behind the curtain, heartbeat slow and steady. He scanned the crowd once more. No signs of Dean. No warnings. Just excitement, smiles, people clutching signs. I believe because she danced. My first step is today. Hope has rhythm. The lights dimmed. The announcer's voice filled the room. Please welcome Caroline Grayson and Elijah Brooks. A roar. Not applause. Roar. They stepped out together. Caroline wore a simple black leotard and barefoot tights. No flash. No makeup. Just strength. Elijah matched her. And when the music started, a slow, rising cello track they'd chosen weeks before, the entire room fell into silence. They danced. Not perfect. Not polished. But full of breath. And truth. And grace. The kind of movement that came from pain earned and trust built. Halfway through, Caroline stumbled. Just a little. But she caught herself. And raised her arms higher. The crowd rose with her. And just as the final note faded, just as she leaned into Elijah's arms to end the piece, he saw it. Far back, balcony left, a man in a baseball cap. Eyes fixed on them. Hand in his coat. Elijah whispered, "Stay with me." And let go. He ran offstage. Security swarmed the exit. The crowd erupted in murmurs. But the man was gone. Chair empty. Just a dropped phone. Recording light blinking red. Elijah grabbed it. And on the screen, a file played. Footage from the old studio. Caroline's first steps. Audio edited to make it sound like he was coaching her under duress. Twisted. Cropped. Doctored. A message scrolled across the screen. They only see what you show them. What if they saw what you're hiding? DH. Elijah gripped the phone hard. Dean wasn't trying to stop them. He was trying to rewrite them. And this wasn't over. Not even close. Elijah didn't sleep that night. The phone Dean left behind sat in the center of the hotel table like a live wire. The footage was damning, not because it was true, but because it looked like it could be. Carefully cut, voice clipped and slowed. Caroline wincing during therapy. Elijah's hand gripping her elbow just a little too tight. His voice, manipulated, made it sound like he was forcing her. It was manufactured cruelty. But it was good. Too good. If Dean released it, public opinion wouldn't just waver, it would implode. He could hear the headlines now. Grayson dance revealed as psychological abuse. Elijah Brooks, from inspiration to manipulator. Real Steps program under investigation after leaked footage. Caroline was asleep in the next room, finally resting after the high of the performance. He hadn't told her yet. He couldn't tell her yet. Because for the first time since they began this journey, Elijah was afraid she might not survive the fallout. Not physically, emotionally. Because how do you keep dancing when someone poisons the music? In the morning, Elijah called Marcus. We need to find him. Now. No more waiting. Marcus didn't argue. I've got people tracing the device. By a phone. But it pinged 2 towers in Naperville before going dark again. I'm triangulating. Too slow, Elijah said. I'm going after him. Elijah. I'm not letting him do this to her. Not again. Not after everything we've built. Elijah, Marcus said, quieter this time. You're not the same man you were 2 years ago. Don't make a move that pulls you backward. I'm not, Elijah said. I'm pulling this forward. One last step. He left Caroline a note. Didn't say where he was going. Just, I trust you to keep dancing. Trust me to stop the noise. She found it an hour later and immediately called his phone. No answer. She called Grayson. He picked up on the second ring. Where's he? She asked. I don't know, Grayson said. But I have a feeling he's trying to fix this alone. Damn it. I'll send people. No, she said quickly. I will. Caroline. I'm not letting him fight for me in silence. Not anymore. Elijah arrived at the abandoned motel on the edge of the city just after 4 p.m. It matched the tower pings Marcus sent. Room 206. Curtains drawn. Dead truck parked outside. He walked up slow. One knock. Then another. And then the door creaked open. Dean Harper stood in the shadows. Gaunt. Eyes red. One side of his face still bruised from the gala punch, like he wore the memory like a badge. Elijah, he said, voice smooth, smug, always dancing toward the fire. Elijah stepped in. The air stank of cold sweat and spilled whiskey. Where's the rest of it? Elijah asked. The footage. The edits. Dean grinned. What? No small talk. Give me the drives. Why? Dean said. You afraid the world's going to see the truth? Or are you just scared they'll believe the wrong version of it? I'm scared you're so broken you think this is justice. Dean's smile cracked. You humiliated me, he spat. You took everything. I didn't take anything, Elijah said. Caroline chose to believe in herself. That had nothing to do with you. And it kills you. Dean stepped closer. You want the footage, he said. You really want it. He pulled a small drive from his coat pocket, tossed it on the table. Hey, destroy it. Erase the evidence. I've already seen the story go viral without it. You didn't leak it yet. Dean's grin turned cruel. No, but someone else might. And then Caroline's voice cut through the doorway. Then let's hear it now. Dean froze. Caroline stepped into the room. No cane. No limp. Just presence. I told you, Elijah murmured. She's not afraid anymore. Dean stared at her, shaking now. You shouldn't be here, he said. But I am, she replied. You don't own this chapter. You don't get to take the ending. Dean looked between them. You think this is some fairy tale? That you dance, and it all disappears. No, Caroline said. I think I dance, and you disappear. Dean lunged, not fast, not with a weapon, just blind, frustrated movement. But Elijah was faster. He grabbed his arm, shoved him back. Dean hit the floor, cursing. And that was when Grayson's security detail stepped in. Guns drawn, fast, efficient. Dean didn't resist. He just laughed. They'll still doubt you, he shouted as they hauled him out. You can't control what they believe. Caroline watched him go, breathing hard, then turned to Elijah. You okay? He looked at her. You're the one who showed up. She stepped forward. I wasn't going to let you carry my battle without me. The footage was never released. Dean was arrested on multiple charges: cyberstalking, wire fraud, unlawful surveillance. Danielle Hunt issued a final public statement. Dean Harper acted without my knowledge or consent. His obsession with credit over care disrespected every patient who ever fought to heal. She disappeared from the public eye after that. Caroline didn't celebrate, but she did exhale. And for the first time since the gala, there was no more threat, no more shadow, just light and possibility. 2 weeks later, they launched the Real Steps National Tour. First stop, Atlanta. And this time, Caroline opened with a speech. No dancing, just words. I don't stand here because I was healed. I stand here because I chose to try, and because someone stood beside me until I could. She turned to Elijah. He was already crying. Recovery isn't a staircase. It's a loop. A messy, painful, glorious loop. But every time we get knocked down, we rise again. And when we can't, we lean on someone who believes we will. She smiled, and we keep dancing.